Welcome, everybody, to the Journeymen Lounge podcast.
You better be praying to God because, you're 14 and losses in a row. You're going to need Jesus.
Am I wrong?
I thought you were pretty wrong, yeah.
Welcome, all you fans, to the Journeymen Lounge podcast. I am one of your hosts, Woj. We have my eldest brother, Aaron, here. That
Hello.
You've seen a couple times. And we have a new guest gracing the podcast. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself? Give us a little background. Again, we're mainly a sports podcast. So what's your kind of affiliations? Football, basketball, baseball. What you got?
Yeah, what's up, guys? Born and raised in Chicago, so pretty much aligned to all the Chicago teams. More of a basketball fan and a football fan than anything else. I find baseball fun only when you're there.
Right, yeah.
Even with all the rule changes, man, it is just so tedious to watch. But I'm a Cubs fan.
Okay.
If I'm watching Blackhawks, I'm a bandwagon fan. You know, when they had their big dynasty run.
Yeah,
I was into it, but I really only watched the playoffs even during the dynasty days, you know?
Yeah, no, I think there was a lot of hockey. I have found a lot of people are like, it's tough to get into it if you weren't kind of like raised on it. Like I know a lot of my friends that are big hockey fans are like, yeah, I played hockey for like 10 years when I was younger. Now it's a tough sport, I think, to get kind of in on.
Most exciting part for me is the fights, right? Which they don't show a lot of in the playoffs, right? Like they break it up in the regular season.
They don't let it
them
happen
do it
a lot. No.
Regular season, they kind of let it whatever go, but playoffs, dude. At least the hockey playoffs, and we've kind of talked about this in the last couple podcasts, though, is like hockey playoffs have been infinitely more enjoyable than the NBA playoffs. It's been blowouts and 30-point game. I'm like, I want to watch a game that's close in the playoffs. I shouldn't see the conference finals. One team won 4-1. One team swept them 4-0. Like that shouldn't happen in the.
All right, let's talk NBA for just a minute.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Usually, like I'm a Bulls fan. I'm telling you, like, okay, I really like basketball and football mostly. Mm-hmm. This year, I find for probably the first time, I actually do give a shit about the playoffs.
Okay.
And I actually have been watching.
Nice.
I don't necessarily disagree with what you were saying, but I will say it's misleading to say, show 4-1 like for Dallas and Minnesota, right? Like that series was actually a dogfight, like every game was close as shit, like for the most part.
Right. Two of the games came down to the wire, like one shot Mavs hit, 3-1, and then the other
fadeaway
one.
3 over the defensive player of the year. Like that shit was crazy.
Right. I mean, again, they those games, those two were entertaining, but then I just look at it like at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't want to see. In my opinion, there was a lot, especially more on the Eastern Conference side, because the Eastern Conference is weak overall. But I've seen a lot of like what I would call regular season games. Boston was up 25. Yep. They're putting in subs like bench mob at the end of the game. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like we want to see good games going down. And honestly, I've been keying on the refs mostly because there's been a couple games that the refs honestly like they had to have been in the pocket. Like
I'll give you that. Like, and everybody knew Indiana was out, right? Like nobody really needed to watch that series. Like we knew they didn't belong. But what I loved about it is like all the big names for the most part, like at this in the conference finals were out. Like Luka was the biggest name, right? And he doesn't even have a ring, right? So like you like to see these young guys and like who's gonna step up, like who's gonna actually become a champion. I don't know. I
agree with you, though, because there's been a lot of talk about Anthony Edwards kind of coming into it. And I'm like, he's 22, 23. That is what you want to see. I'm the same way across all sports. I want to see the changing of the guard. I don't want to see Patrick Mahomes in his 15th, Super Bowl.
Right.
Same thing with Brady. Once Brady had like 10 trips to the Super Bowl, I'm like, enough. Get somebody else in there. I want to see.
I'm a Tom Brady fanboy, though.
So
he is the greatest of all time.
How much of that interest is like amplified by sports betting?
Zero.
Okay.
Dude, I won't do it. I'm such a fiending addict with everything in my life that
you
I
won't
know
do sports betting?
The moment I download the apps,
it's done.
I'm gonna bet every night. Like I'm gonna whatever's on, I'm gonna bet on it. Because everybody thinks when they're watching the game, like, oh yeah, I know exactly what's gonna happen. You're gonna open that app and bet the shit. Like I can't do it, dude. I will spend all of my money.
Well, I think also the
Or you could win all of your money.
well, there you go. Aaron,
where they get you.
What are you fucking advocating for the casino?
I just like to see the world burn.
Yeah, fair point. No, but I will agree with you on the sports betting thing, though, is like, just for example, I was on, like, just playing video games or whatever, which we'll get into in a little bit here. But I was just fucking around, came across Japan B1 League basketball, and I was just like, I had a couple of soda pops in me, so I was like, I'll put $5 on Hiroshima, whatever, and they won, and I was like, I've actually played the Ben Folds Hiroshima song as a celebration, but like, again, there's everything on at all times.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Tell me this. Is the only reason why you bet on Hiroshima was because you knew the name of the city?
No, it just was it just was a fucking like.
Yeah, they really bounced back.
It just was you're an asshole betting at 11:30 on Japan basketball.
I can't wait till it gets to the
pure
level of like
degenerate.
those extended ESPN channels. You're all of a sudden you're gonna be up at like 4 a.m. betting on cup stacking tournaments. It's like, man, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it.
Jacob's really, his hands are quicker this year.
Yeah.
He's gotten. It's fucking.
It probably is healthy overall for like the sports world and like some of the more obscure shit. Like
Right.
people
more
are
eyes
watching
on it.
sailing now because
Yeah.
of, like you could bet on it or like
That's fucking
whatever
I mean,
it is.
I hate to tell you this. People were watching sailing before, but it just wasn't that many people. Those 5 guys were really dedicated.
But I will say that definitely does kind of contribute to getting eyes on the sport. My mic.
Uh-oh.
My mic's going a little in and out.
Oh no!
It should be all right.
I can't wait until there's going to be betting on the podcast.
What do you mean?
Well, what are the odds that the mic goes out?
Yeah, I don't know. It
You're
should
going
be
to see
fine.
that on your. It's going to come up on FanDuel.
Honestly, if my mic cuts out, it's not the worst thing. You guys can take over from there.
Journeymen Lounge podcast. Over under.
Yeah, it's all good. Whatever. Fuck it. We do whatever here. No, it's fine. If it goes out, it goes out. We adapt and survive. All right. So, I do like though. Again, like we'll definitely have you back on in the future about the Bulls because this season the Bulls really took a. Are you all right there?
I thought that was the end. You're like, all right, thanks, Steve. We'll have you back on.
Oh yeah.
It's nice to hang out with you guys. It's been real.
Shortest guest.
Welcome
ever.
to the shortest podcast ever. 9 minutes with Steve. It's all we could book him for.
But I definitely want to have you back on though to talk when the Bulls are actually relevant because Ryan, one of the other co-hosts on this, he called it absolutely. Bulls are going to make it in the play-in tournament, maybe get out of it, maybe lose in it. That's exactly what happened. And there's just going to be some sweeping changes that I'm hoping, again, will hoping that there's a potential for the Bulls to kind of get back to a more competitive edge. Because right now, the last 5 years, they've just kind of been like middle of the road, and so disheartening to watch. Every game is a 15-point win, then they lose by 30, then they beat the worst team in the league by 1. It's just all over the place. Consistency.
Didn't they get cautioned like 3 years ago for losing too many games to better up their draft position?
I don't know about that. They have just not been good for a lot of the last.
I will
5 years.
argue the Bulls were really fun to watch when it was Lonzo's first season. A little bit of a rebuild. DeMar comes, Lonzo comes, and all of a sudden we're watching the Bulls and like they're moving the ball. They were whooping ass, man. Like they were top 5 in the conference. Like everything was looking real good. Lonzo got hurt,
down,
and it's been absolute dog
yeah.
shit
One,
since then.
I would say that's probably like the peak moment of like we were at the top here, like looking good. Lonzo goes down, and then also it's not like Lonzo went down for like 6 games, 30 games, or whatever. He's missed the last 2 seasons, and that's extremely detrimental. They just said he had like a knee replacement at 25, 26.
Yeah.
That's not good. I'm hoping that he can get back in, but again, I'm more pessimistic about that stuff just because NBA, you really have to be tip-top shape. Like, and I was just joking about it. I was at the Cubs game actually yesterday, and all the pitchers are fat. Like, you don't have to be athletic.
They're not even athletes. They're just
to be a
baseball
pitcher
players.
in the base.
Yeah.
And most of the other positions like weren't the most athletic guys either. But like the majority of the other sports, like you can't get away with that. You have to be an
What about
actual
offensive
tip-top shape,
linesmen in football?
Yeah, but I will say defensive linemen, they may appear, or whatever, linemen in general, they may appear fat, but it's also pure power.
Yeah, dude, they'll jump on top of a fucking refrigerator from a standstill,
They will kick your ass. And
I'm not arguing that.
I watched a college lineman literally take a standing jump out of a pool.
Oh yeah,
Did you
yeah.
see that video?
Mhm.
I was like, Jesus.
I mean, again,
Christ.
they are freak athletes all over the place. But yeah, like I said, I do want to get you back on to talk a little bit more bulls and stuff like that.
Yes, but please leave now. You're done.
Yeah.
no.
See ya.
So let's switch gears here a little bit here. I do like to give updates here about my golf game because I had a back injury here. I just played on Wednesday. Shot all right. Just gearing up for a golf trip here in the next little bit here.
Did you go get the ring dinger?
What the fuck is a ring dinger?
You haven't seen the ring dinger videos?
No. Oh, the
lay you on the
chiropractor.
back and they put the thing up there, and then they
Yeah,
pull you
yeah.
by the neck and release everything from your spine. And if you're not permanently incapacitated, then you're good to go. You
I
feel
mean,
great.
I have not found a chiropractor around here that does that. Like, I don't think that
Oh,
that's
it's only
like
one
a-
guy. It's like 2 people or 3
But
people in the world.
I'm just saying, I think in the chiropractor, and this is just my take, my 2 cents. I think in the chiropractor community, I don't think that that's like a
Oh no.
really like accepted like.
No, I don't
think
think
it's
so
really
either.
like a YouTube type of like. Came
I
to
think on YouTube
prominence
it's very
there, and
widely
then-
accepted, but on the chiropractor world,
Well,
they ain't doing the professional development. there.
also, if you've ever seen on the YouTube video, you ever seen the Russian guys? Dude, these Russian guys will go in with like they'll put an MMA glove on, and then they'll have a person lay it down on the table, and they're just like, these people are screaming in agony. Look it up; it's fucking hilarious to watch. It's obviously not.
To be
I
honest,
feel like
I've
you're on a
only
different
seen
YouTube.
I've only seen one very specific genre of chiropractor videos. It's not that one.
Not the guy beating the ever living snot
right.
out of the other dude.
It's a fun watch in my opinion because the whole time you're just thinking like,
Are you sure you're not watching videos of the war on Ukraine?
I mean this guy is wailing on this dude and he's just screaming in pain. Like
Yeah,
there is no relief. It's just him
I'm
beating
pretty
the
sure
shit
you're
out of this.
watching a guy beat the shit out of another guy. Pretty sure you're on the dark
Hey,
web.
he's on a table, and so maybe it's chiropractor.
Let me
I don't
ask you
know.
this question: was there a subscription fee that you had to pay before watching this? video?
No. It's just not. Dude, YouTube is crazy.
Almost anything goes.
Let's just leave it at that. Okay, so Steve, as I failed to mention here, so you're part of Devon Deluxe with my brothers and my dad and stuff like that. I do just want to do a quick plug, if you guys can, like, what's your next gig, couple gigs or whatever?
Well, I
And
think first you need to say that Steve is the heart of Devon Deluxe. Without him,
you're
it
too
doesn't
kind.
exist.
there you go. Okay, but again, like, plug a show. Like, what do you guys got coming up? Maybe somebody watching this will go to it.
I think we should link it in the comments.
I definitely will.
Oh, for sure.
But I'm just in
I don't know
terms
the
of
dates,
the. I mean, again, is it July? Is it August?
Yeah,
I
so
mean-
we're doing, I think, the Bolingbrook Festival of Cultures.
Okay.
Is that the next one?
I think the first one up is going to be Independence Park in Chicago.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're probably right.
The 28th.
All right.
I can fact
we'll
check.
put
It's
the
fine.
dates in.
We'll put the dates in and all that stuff. But again, I just, again, I wanted to. I've definitely plugged your guys' stuff before. You guys, honestly, you really do put on a great show. And again, I think it's also a nice atmosphere of like, it's kind of like, I have the perspective of like a family band, but then when you guys always do this stuff afterwards, like, hey, we're going to go over here, grab a beer, grab some food or whatever. That's always the part that I do also enjoy is like, it's not just like hey, we played the show, now
Oh, yeah.
peace out, guys.
For sure. I got the first show for us for the year is going to be June 28th at 6 p.m. in Independence Park in Chicago. And that's right off of Kedzie. It's 3945 North Independence Park. 3945 North Springfield Avenue. Independence Park is the name of the park. And
Yeah.
then we got a bunch more after
All right,
that.
we'll put it in the comments and the.
So my elevator pitch on Devon Deluxe
All right,
is
let's hear
always, it's like 11, 12-piece band, some pros, some newbies, but it's top 40 from like the 60s to now. So it's Billy Joel to Billie Eilish.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, again, you guys do hit a lot of different. I mean, you do have to kind of incorporate the horns and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I do kind of see you guys obviously tending more towards like Chicago that utilizes
Yeah.
the horns and stuff like that. But again, always a good show. Again, I would not be plugging it if it was like again, some people have like a hobby and you're like, you're not good at this. But again, you guys put on a great show. You guys actually know what the fuck you're doing up there, so that's a
Thanks,
positive.
Appreciate that.
The next show after that is July 13th. That's a Saturday. That's a Bolingbrook Fest at 1 p.m. and that's in Bolingbrook.
Okay.
375 West Briarcliff Road in Bolingbrook, area code or zip code 60440. Got a lot of information on this calendar. You ever look at it?
Christ.
Yeah,
It's
from
nice.
time to time. I haven't committed it to memory, but yeah.
I didn't
it's in
commit it to
there.
memory either. I'm just looking at it. I got this. Oh.
Okay, so yeah, we'll link those in the description down below. And again, I mean, I'll be checking some of those out. I don't remember exactly what my schedule's like, but I definitely will be at something over the course of this year.
So I got a question for you.
What's up?
You and I probably are the same lane, but maybe Steve's a little bit different. But we're in the world of like all the shared calendars now, and sometimes people don't know how the shared calendars work, and you get like
What people?
Old people?
Boomers?
usually, yeah, and you get invites to like their doctor's appointments.
Oh shit!
There's nothing more interesting. It's like I don't know if he really wants me to go to that proctology exam.
Dude, I don't get a lot of that in my life because my family, we don't do shared calendars.
Okay.
Like even my wife and I, we've got our own calendars on our phones, and then we have a physical like whiteboard kind of calendar in the kitchen. So on any given month, all of our stuff is there.
Okay.
That's
I mean,
nice.
it's not as good as because I got every once in a while, like especially like our buddy George, right, wants to plan everything 18 months in advance, like so
I'm
that shit is
totally
not
down
in
with
our
that.
kitchen calendar, but,
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think I mean again, I was definitely not on the calendar boat for a long time, but now it's just there's too much shit. Nephew, nieces, soccer games, and all this stuff. Your guys' events and stuff. Like, because I really, really hate when I am like, I just tell somebody, I'm like, yeah, I'll be there or whatever. And then 2 weeks from it out, I'm like, oh, that's my nephew's birthday. Like, not that example, but like, oh, Devon Deluxe are playing. And I'm
I think
like,
it'd be
fuck.
much easier to explain to your nephew while you're not at his birthday.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother can of worms there.
I tend to have a lot of patience, I think, in my like personal life for calendar stuff and how people use
Interesting.
calendars. I have very little patience at work for like
the
learn how to use Outlook, Lori.
Scheduling of
Are you
meetings.
fucking kidding me? Like
Yeah.
it's
I'm
the
with you there.
basis of all work, right? Like just
I'm with you there, and I work at a place where people will set meetings at the end of the day for the next day at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and it's
Get
like,
fucked.
dude, seriously?
I would say more on the terms of like people just, and again, this is not specific to boomers or older people or anything like that. It's just people in general don't know how to use, again, like an Outlook or a scheduling thing or whatever.
the schedule assistant,
And,
dude. Like
I
ask
mean-
me one more time when I'm available, right? Like
I
we
was
work at the same company.
Just about to say that. Like, dude, how fucking annoying is that of like, oh, so are
man.
you free from 12:30 to 1? I'm like,
Go
did
look.
you look at the calendar? Okay. And
Well,
then also
and-
I've had it where I said, I'm free all day. And they go, would this work? I'm like, bitch, I'm free all day. What does that mean?
See, that's another thing to me too. Like, I don't understand when anybody schedules anything between 12 and 1. Like,
I don't.
even like
Yeah,
between
that's-
before
dude,
11.
sometimes shit is
after 2.
important. I get that. Like
absolutely.
I haven't had like lunch. Like I haven't had an
Yeah.
opening for lunch on my calendar as long as I can remember. Like it's fine. I just eat during that meeting and I turn my camera off and it's like
Right,
it is
yeah.
what it
I
is.
think
right?
the post-COVID thing's a little bit different, but it's just like in general, it's like, oh, you have a free hour in this day. It's like, yeah, but that's 12 to 1. I want to have lunch, and on top of it, it's impossible to schedule that other people because especially if you work with a bunch of people that take 2-hour lunches.
Yeah, I mean,
Where do you,
obviously-
dude? I gotta get a job where you work.
You don't
2
want
hour
that.
lunches sounds
Oh my god.
luxurious.
Oh yeah.
I definitely would say that the end of the day is more infuriating because anything
Yeah.
usually after like 3 p.m. unless the building is on fire, it can wait, man.
For me, it's 4.
4,
If we have
yeah.
a meeting after 4, like it better be urgent.
right.
You know.
Yeah, it's just people just. I mean, and this has been the bitching hour of work-related items. I don't know. I do this all the time with my buddies via Xbox, but as I make that beautiful transition here. So, like video games, we're definitely, again, I've been slacking really hard. I've mentioned it like 4 times. The Instagram page will be up soon. I will promise you that again. But we're trying to get like more clips and stuff like that. I sent you that message,
Bet
Steve.
now on FanDuel on whether that Instagram page is going to be up before the release of this next episode.
But to send in those clips and stuff like that. But Steve, I guess maybe give us a little bit about like what's your gaming kind of background, like in terms of like, did you start on the old like I don't know 64 Sega Genesis, like
Yeah.
where was your kind of like introduction into it, and then kind of like also as we get now, what are you kind of like? Because again, everybody I feel like in our group of friends really plays video games in some capacity, but obviously now your time is much more valuable, so you're not, playing as much, I would assume, as you were, 15, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, it goes up and down for me. I'll give you like the 2-minute history. So I start on Sega Genesis. We're talking Sonic the Hedgehog, Street Fighter, Ninja Turtles.
I forgot about
those
Ninja
were the
Turtles.
Staples for me. And then I graduate to PlayStation 1, and
Dave
Crash
Mary's
Bandicoot is my
Ooh,
shit, right?
nice.
Like Crash Bandicoot, the Spyro games, like
Okay.
any fighting game. They Tekken. That stuff started on started to get more popular, or at least for me, on PlayStation 1. And then I stuck with PlayStation 2, and then it was more like you were getting into GTA 3, like some pretty groundbreaking shit. And I mean, I played N64 like at friends' houses. Like if there's one game that might define like my whole gaming career, it's got to be NFL Blitz.
Fuck yeah.
I mean, I'm just we had a tournament. I was the champion. Like, if I'm putting money on a video game, it's NFL Blitz. Like,
Okay.
No, I fuck with me on NFL Blitz.
Did you ever
right,
play
dude.
the arcade version of NFL
Yeah.
Blitz?
Yeah, it's impossible.
I was gonna say,
With a controller, like all day, right? The
Yeah,
arcade version, like,
yeah.
dude, I gotta practice that shit.
yeah. I would also say though that again the movement of this, like Aaron and I have been talking about trying to get something going. We have to obviously figure out the technical side of it, but like trying to do something where we're obviously playing the same game and then also having it up on the the YouTube page or whatever.
Get me on that Blitz tourney.
But
dude,
I
get me
was,
ready.
dude, exactly as you're saying that. I'm like, I'm sure we could get like 6-8 guys that are like, all right, no, I'm the best at Blitz, and then fucking put everybody against.
My pitch for trying to do the whole put everybody together thing is have you and I take him and maybe Jeremy and coddle him through Sea of Thieves.
Yeah, so moving
Huge
into
learning
like
curve.
modern
Yeah.
times, right?
Sorry.
There's
Back to
there's
your
a
thing.
couple.
Yeah.
There's a Sea of Thieves. I sunk a lot of hours in, man. That game is awesome. It makes me want to kill myself. Like there's not much in between, right? Like you're either having a great time whooping everybody's ass, or you're like breaking your TV and controller.
So give us like I would say like a 30-second like pitch on Sea of Thieves, because I really only have seen like Aaron or Jeremy kind of play it.
Yeah.
But again, it's
Jeremy's
like,
played it once and I
it's
yelled at him
like
and he never played it again.
Again, just explain it like the
Yeah, so the
viewers
premise
kinda
of Sea of Thieves is like it's open world sailing, right? So there's missions you can do. There's all kinds of like it's going to take forever to go through all the rules, right? But there's a few different types of players. There's players that are into like the skins and like trying to level your characters so you can get the skins. Like I'm the type of character like I'm there to bully people. That's it. Like, and the younger the better, dude. Like if there's somebody who we can make cry,
Okay.
like it's just.
I now know. I remember now exactly a video of like I think it was Sea of Thieves, and it's like 12-year-old kids just getting destroyed by this one dude.
Yeah.
Gets
Well,
onto
dude,
the
it
ship,
just-
and
it
they're
ta-
just screaming.
It's an unbelievable investment of time to do something pretty simple in that game. Like if you're trying to achieve like a basic, like you might be on for 3 or 4 hours just to run this one mission and then go sell your stuff, right? The basis of the game is like you're getting stuff, you're selling stuff, you're making money, right? So, but you're fighting. It's like a pirate game, right? So at any moment, like you approach a ship, you dick on them. They may have put 6 hours into getting all that stuff on their ship.
Yeah.
And like it all goes down the drain. And it's so toxic.
And
dude.
it's all skill based too. There's no like leveled up weapons, no level up things. I mean, there's a couple things that give you a little bit of a maybe an edge on the game.
The strategy gives you an edge.
Yeah, the
Like,
strategy
if you know
definitely.
the strategy
Yeah.
of what to do, like
Yeah.
that's the edge.
It's like actual experience is what gets you the edge there. I remember I played that game day one, and for 2 weeks couldn't turn in one mission. Couldn't turn in one chest, one of anything.
It's a rite of
I just
passage,
got
right? You're getting bullied every day.
Absolutely destroyed. I could not make it from one island to the next without getting absolutely cut down.
Is it also a game though? Because I know Aaron, you jump on a lot with Justin and those guys. But is it one of those games that like at a certain point you cannot like you have to join up with people? You have to have a a crew. Because like I'll just go for example on a Ghost Recon, I would get to a certain point where like you could do the majority of the campaign without really any help. Like they give you AIs or whatever, but they don't do a fucking thing. But then once you get to like the 5 diamond, base or whatever, I simply need other guys that are not AIs to fucking get my back. So like, is that kind of though, like if you really want to get to the point of like having all of the money and like the biggest ship and all that stuff, do you have to really join up?
See, but like that's the thing is you're not buying up to the biggest ship. You just take it. So,
you don't buy ships.
So you don't. Yeah,
No.
you can.
you could buy decorations for your
Right.
ships and skins for them, right? But like everything is pretty even.
Oh fuck.
So if
okay.
you want the big ship, like there's
just
more
do it.
guns, but it's slower and it's harder to maneuver. So like there's plenty of times that the smallest ship beats the biggest ship.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
It's all based on
Yeah.
skill, because there's advantages to all of them and disadvantages to all of them.
Okay, I totally get that. So yeah, I mean, again, the gaming aspect, I think anybody who watches the podcast will kind of understand that it's going to continually be like a pretty prominent side of this. I know we kind of delve into sports, and and we do movie reviews now. I'd love to get you on, Aaron. I want to get you back on to do some more movie reviews if you guys got something that you're really, specifically kind of jacked about movie. And then we also do album reviews and stuff like that. We'll definitely have you on in the future there.
Hey, before we move on from games,
round out to the games here.
Oh,
You didn't
shit,
say
my
all those
bad.
games he was playing.
Sorry, I thought
no.
CFDs
I
was
want
the-
to. We don't have to go through all the games I played. Like, who gives a shit?
Not all
But
that you played.
There's
What did you
there's a
play?
public statement that I want to make, and
boy.
people need to let us know in the comments if they agree. Call of Duty now in 2024
Yeah.
is booty cheeks.
Yeah, it's garbage.
Like the game is done, dude. It went from when COVID, dude, when we were fucking around.
When we were in
on
Verdansk,
Verdansk,
yeah, that was
like,
the glory days.
Had a lot of fun.
You
lot
guys,
of fun.
everybody played that during COVID. Like the vastness of that map that like in
Yeah.
your mind.
Oh, yeah.
You can drop in Verdansk today after not playing for 2.5 years.
and you still know where everything is, yeah.
And you know every square inch of that place, dude. It's unbelievable, right? And it's been kind of downhill since then, right?
I would definitely agree. I think that and I've bitched about this to anybody that I've played with for a long time, is that like Call of Duty in general and the people that have, that put out the game and stuff like that, it's just simply a lack of effort. There's so many things that you could do to make the game better, make the experience better. But I mean, again, there's just been a litany of issues that, I mean, I remember vividly, like, when they had that newer map Caldera come out, Jeremy simply was like, I am done playing Warzone now, because
Yeah.
but for a 2-week period when they were like having all these bugs, you couldn't play it. You would get in.
Nothing was worse.
Drop it out. There's glitches in the game. and
Nothing
then,
was worse than the boys update when they put all those superpowers and
that's
stuff in the
fucking-
game was
Dude, to me,
unplayable.
it's like the culture of Call of Duty now
Yeah.
is, okay, whatever the meta guns are, you
Right.
got to grab those,
Yep.
and then you only can play with those if you grind, right? Like, I don't do that shit, dude. I don't have time to do that, so that means I can never go in and play
Yeah.
competitively because I
Right.
don't have the meta set up. And
Yeah.
now all the mechanics, it's getting almost to like how Gears was. If you guys remember Gears,
I
you
love
would like
Gears of War, yeah.
maybe my favorite game, but like
fuck
the
yeah.
movement mechanics was never really part of Call of Duty.
No.
Gears, the movement mechanics was like half the game. Like if you're
Yeah.
good at that, you can maneuver. But now like all the slide cancel, bunny hopping shit, like I can't
Yeah.
compete, dude.
Yeah.
It's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think Call of Duty is definitely a period
So-
where it goes downhill pretty.
I would agree with all those statements, but I would also say that since they brought back Rebirth and Resurgence and a couple other things,
Resurgence is the only way.
I've been enjoying it again a little bit. I mean, like, I was actually looking forward to play, but for a while I was just like, I'd rather play anything
Dude,
else.
Regular Warzone. Yeah, let me
I had
take
more
let
fun
me
playing
take
the
10 minutes to
zombies.
even drop in.
Yeah.
Get my ass whooped, lose the googe, and then you're fucking chilling for 15
Go to the
minutes
next
watching
one.
your boys play. Like,
Yeah.
dude,
Yeah.
not fun. I know, sorry, I know
can I-
you're trying to move things along.
No,
That's-
no, no,
I
you're
needed
all
to
good.
publicly just state my case on Call of Duty being ass cheeks.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Could I-
Anytime you want to do that, go
Could
for
I
it.
run it out with a couple quick questions
Yeah,
to Steve?
go
So
for
I think you answered it already, but favorite game of all time?
Toss up between Starfield
Okay.
and Fallout 4.
Nice.
Okay.
The game that you could find yourself going back to playing at any point, like 10 years later, you just gonna
Fallout
go back
4.
and play that game. Fallout 4.
Hell yeah.
Are you sorry?
Alright.
Just a real quick interjection. Are you kind of on board with like the series? Have you seen that yet?
Loved it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Loved it. Couldn't recommend it enough.
I haven't done. I literally have never played a Fallout game before, but I feel like as it's getting kind of like not notoriety because it's always been a very popular game, but like I always have a hesitation like to go and watch the series, and then if the game like I want to obviously play the game to a certain point first before I go into the series, because series and television always seem to ruin, in terms of like just in some aspect where you're like, oh, well, they wouldn't really be like this, or like, well, okay, they're moving, like they just sometimes, I know, like they'll just omit a part of the story and be like, well, now it's just this, just for better television. Those type of things just move, like, entertainment in general, unfortunately, when it's based off off a game, tends to fall short in my estimation. I don't know if there's...
Dude, I think Fallout holds up. Like,
Okay.
if you play Fallout 4 for the first time right now,
Okay.
you're not going to be like, oh, I'm bored, I'm playing an old-ass game. Like, I mean, the graphics are not quite as good as,
Yeah.
like,
Right, yeah.
but, like,
Yeah.
they're good enough where you're not, like, focused on, like, oh, this game looks like shit. Like, it looks good. The story's amazing. Like, you can play it so many different ways and there's so many different outcomes. Like, I'd highly recommend it if you've got several hundred hours to sink in, because it will consume your life.
I was
It
going to
will.
say,
It will.
I think
Your biggest challenge in that game is finishing one quest.
I'm definitely looking kind of for a switch off of Call of Duty, because it has gotten monotonous now. Like, I've won some
May I
games.
suggest?
The grass is green over at Halo, brother.
Sea of
Well,
Thieves.
I'll make one quick point about Halo. It's obviously a larger discussion, but like Halo for me, the campaigns always rule supreme. Multiplayer, I think I just missed the window initially where like everybody got good at the multiplayer. Like all you guys are pretty decent at the
Not me.
multiplayer.
I'm ass at Halo.
But I mean,
It's still fun,
even
though.
just in general of like knowing like, oh, this
I
is
am
like the
terrible at
map
Halo.
and this is where you go. Okay, sniping and stuff. I can't hit a snipe to save my goddamn life.
Same.
But like that's where I very much kind of fall short on the multiplayer. I will still play it because playing with friends is fucking awesome. But I just again I have that hesitation. The campaign, if you're like, yo, let's play the campaign, I'm like, all right, let's go.
Dude, let me tell you
let me
this
cancel
about,
my
like,
plans.
the matchmaking on Halo is pretty good, but
Yes.
if we play with Jeremy, or like I've got some friends that are super good, like it matches you with people that are
The
better
upper
than you,
tier,
right? So
upper
you
tier,
just
yeah.
get dicked on. But like if you and I were to play, I think we're about the same. Like just judging by like what our stats look like after each game. Like if you and I get on, we're probably gonna fuck everybody up. It's gonna be fun.
Okay, so matchmaking is maybe the reason, because I know Jeremy and I have played a couple games, and at the end of it we were like, so new game, like we have to play something else.
It's
'cause
hard
we
with
just
it's
got-
hard when you get on with somebody who's like a good amount
And he
better
plays.
than you.
He also plays a lot, so I'm sure the rank
Yeah.
up. And,
I mean, it's also like that rank part there. So, Steve, last question is: what's the most memorable game from your childhood?
Most memorable.
Like, what's that when you think back and you're like, man, that's what it was like being a kid?
It's probably Crash Bandicoot, dude.
Nice.
I spent a lot of hours on that.
okay.
It's either Crash Bandicoot or Tekken 3. I was pretty violent kid, so I loved the fighting games,
That's great.
Nice.
Aaron, I do want to.
Yes, sir.
You gave 3 good questions, so why don't you answer those? So, favorite game. What was the other one?
Favorite game, the game you'll go back to time and time again. Basically, like 10 years later, you're still playing that game.
And then the
one was the most
all-time,
memorable from the
most
childhood.
memorable. Okay.
So I'm going to go with the probably most memorable from my childhood is going to be Ghostbusters 2 on NES.
Oh shit.
Because
okay.
we had that game. We also could put in a cheat code, and we were able to play it like on our own as kids. So I remember definitely me and Jeremy, probably just a little bit of you because there's a significant age gap there. We'd be playing that game all the time.
Well, you guys were also
On NES.
assholes, and I would be sitting in the corner playing. But
Well,
with
nobody wanted to play.
I'd
with
be
you.
playing with a controller that doesn't work.
That's true.
Also,
That's true.
Also because I smashed the
You
controller.
also broke about 75
moments
controllers growing
earlier,
up.
but that's besides the point.
So going back to like games you'll always come back to and play, I got a 50-50 kind of toss up in between 2 games there. Unfortunately, I don't play either of them with you, Jason. Is Sea of Thieves, which I think, Steve, we've played a couple times. It's not been many, but a couple times.
Played a handful.
And then the other one is a game that's called 7 Days to Die that was in development for over 15 years and is going gold
shit.
this month. Finally coming out of development. And then the other question that I came up with that I can't remember anymore was
Favorite game of all time.
favorite game of all time. I would probably say, boy, I can't think of.
I mean, shot out of a
Yeah.
cannon. You got to fuck one, marry one, kill one. Go.
Favorite game of all time would probably be the game that gave me the most control over what I did in the game, and that was Star Wars Galaxies, which was an MMORPG
Okay.
that got killed, but it was run by Sony. and you could be anything you wanted. That you could be a musician in that and build up a skill tree from it and make a career in the game doing that.
Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
I will kind of go with a little bit of a little cheapy answer though, because I'm gonna kind of choose a franchise. I have definitely favorite iterations of the game, but FIFA overall, like the game from its infancy back. I mean, it's I think FIFA 90. There was a 1996 game for N64 is kind of when we started, and so we're coming up on 20 years of 30 years, right? 96 to 2026, right? That'd be 30 years.
Don't ask me to do math.
It's not called FIFA anymore.
FC bullshit. Get the fuck out of here with that stuff. But I just will say, though, that the reason that it's my favorite game is like when you started off and played it earlier, it started to get in like the 2010s to a point where I was saying a lot like, this is the greatest game of all time. And then when a new version would come out a couple of years later, some of them are duds, obviously, with any sports game. But then great game. Like the 24 version now, it's like the character, what did you say, the character tree and stuff like that. They started incorporating that stuff into it that I very much enjoyed. Like you can tailor your player to how you want to do them. They do these pro clubs things where you're like,
is it a story like a 2K kind of?
So they do have on the campaign side, you can always do a My Pro or whatever, and you could, do also any level of management. You could be the manager, you could be the GM, the owner, and stuff like that. It's really, I mean, those are for the ones that just how you want to play. Do you not want to play the game at all and just do a managerial thing? You can do it. I think that would be boring as fuck. But
you know what element I think that game, like that type of game, is missing? What? I would just take like the NFL section of it is like when you can't have your player because they got arrested and have like a 4-week suspension.
If you ever played,
that's the realism that I want.
Yeah,
it's not NFL Blitz.
That is the realism that I want.
It's a later version of that, but it was NFL Blitz on steroids though and cocaine. It was like
that's the name of the game, NFL Blitz on steroids and cocaine.
I wish I could fucking remember it, but it was like.
I know what you're talking about. I can't remember the name either.
It might have been like a one-off of it, but like the storylines in that were like you're banging a cheerleader for the team, you get caught doing cocaine, and like these are cutscenes.
Yeah,
and then like when you get hit in the game, they'll do the X-ray thing where like the finger obliterates or like your back, and then the choice is like do steroids or rest for 5 minutes.
They used the sniper camera thing on that.
Oh no, but I mean, again, it was a wild game. I mean, I'm sure there's.
I'm sorry, I took that off of the thing.
It's all good.
You got your first question there. Second question.
All right, the game that I go back to
time and time again.
I would probably go with like whenever Tony Hawk, like somebody can break out a Tony Hawk N64. Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't really like any of the ones after it. I think it's more just
I don't think anybody did.
A lack of playing. I know other people that are like Tony Hawk
1 and 2.
1 and 2 maybe.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying some of my friends have gone, well, Tony Hawk 2 is like the fucking shit. I'm like, well, the N64 version for me, Pro Skater, is without a doubt the most like.
I think 1 and 2 were both on 64. Right?
Okay, I don't
No,
remember.
it was on PlayStation as well.
No, but there wasn't a next gen system.
Oh no,
for
No. You're right.
No,
on
they're
that.
both on the same line there.
But I do always like to go back to that. I do fucking find though that like it's very few and far between. I mean, Jeremy does a good job of like sometimes breaking out the N64 and having everybody go. But then also a lot of people are like, well, let's play Smash, which is equally great game. But like it's a game that when it's on, like, and somebody brings it out, I'm like, well, I'm getting on this. Like, I don't care, whatever. It could be
Tony Hawk you're talking about.
Yeah, Tony Hawk Pro Skater. It's
dude.
If there's a full party going on, I'm like, I don't give a shit.
So have you mastered like at least the warehouse, right? Like you've mastered that run down. Like it's muscle memory.
I would
perfect
say
run, right?
What you're gonna do?
I don't know if there's the perfect run. I think the hours played in that I know every inch of that, like because there's those secret rooms and stuff like that to get there where the letters would be, like that part of it. Like if you ask me to be like, hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you can complete all of the challenges, I'm sure I could do it today and be like, oh, this is exactly how you do it.
That's sick.
And then
best song on Tony Hawk. Sorry, before.
I go with Goldfinger. The
Superman.
Yeah, Superman. Yeah,
being featured in the concert by Devon
Oh
Deluxe.
shit, are you guys playing that? Fuck
yeah,
dude.
baby.
That's a great song for you guys, though. I feel like.
Yeah.
Hey, Steve, who's singing that one?
All right, there you go. And then what was the last one was what do you go back to? Or what was it?
That was the one you just answered. What do you go back to time and time again?
What was the other?
The one most memorable from your childhood?
Most memorable, I had that answer ready. Super Mario 64 and
Okay,
64
yeah.
for sure. I mean that.
Can you do the staircase back jump thing to get the star?
I've seen that. I don't. Okay, this is gonna be. I'm gonna sound like a real nerd here. I don't like cheats or like
Oh, get the hell
glitches
out
in
of
the
here.
game.
You're a purist.
I just don't
Uh-uh.
like. When I saw the person do that, there's like a really famous video of a guy trying, and then he gives it to the gamer girl.
He gives it
and
to his
she
girlfriend.
does it
She does it. I was
like
thinking about
one
that
check.
same video.
I just like. I don't get like the
You-
mindset behind like. So you just go to that level,
So-
and then you're like,
So you're going to tell me you never did the cheat in Grand Theft Auto for infinite money, and infinite life, and infinite ammo?
I did.
You
them.
don't know those. What is
You
it?
had
L2,
to.
L2, R2, left,
Right.
down, right, up, left, down, right, up, L2, L2,
Yes,
R2.
of course I did that.
Triangle, circle, triangle.
Maybe let me specify is that like Super Mario 64 is like straight line game. Like you have to go to get the stars to get up to here or whatever. That's bypassing that, so you just can somehow get to the higher levels. GTA is just like, hey, what are you doing? You're just fucking around. You get the
Yeah.
campaign done. Then what else
There's
is
no
left?
integrity there, right?
There
Like,
is
you're
no
just
integrity
Also,
in that
I mean,
game.
again, the
There's
game
absolutely no integrity in that game.
like 99% of the time when you give somebody the sticks on GTA, what do they do first? Kill a hooker or, blow up a line of cars. Like
the thing that you can only do in that game at the time.
right.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Isn't that
type
great
of-
though? You're rolling up your 11-year-old son who's playing Grand Theft Auto. And it's like, who's that with you in your car? Hooker.
That's Rhonda.
Yeah. Why are you going back over behind that building? Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, GTA in my mind, like that's always what we did. Like I like to play the campaign as well, but
There's
most of
refs
the
in
time
UFL?
when people, got the handle of it, it's like, all right, how can I kill the most amount of people? It's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, but that was a little trip down the memory of games, though. Again, like I said, I'm hoping that the games and video games and stuff like that will continue to be a big part of the podcast going forward. But let's kind of switch gears here. I do just want to quick check here, real Aaron. Did your camera then shut off after the 30-minute mark?
No, it's running.
It's still
43
going,
minutes.
right? Because you have that. Hell yeah. Okay. So
I got you, boss. Don't worry.
one of the main reasons that we have Steve on here, aside from being a friend, is you're into watches, right? And that means you own them, you know about them. You're not. I would say I feel like there are some watch people that they do it just as a thing of like, I have a lot of money, so that I'm just gonna buy that as an accessory that I'm like, well, I can buy the $100,000 watch, right? I would say you're probably, from what you told me kind of before, like you actually appreciate kind of the more of like, it's not just a timepiece. It's like, hey, there's a lot that goes into this.
Boy, judging by that fact, I'm poor as shit right now.
This one I didn't steal from work. I just took it without them knowing.
Yeah, some would call that.
Are you still employed there?
Yeah, who gives a shit?
Yeah. Okay. So I guess people in the watch community
Okay.
would call that like an enthusiast.
Okay.
Right? So it's not really about money, but like you understand kind of the history and the reason. Like if you can understand the history of like when certain things were made, like when certain innovations were made, then you can have this kind of different appreciation for like why a watch is
Right.
the way it is. So like if you look at like a brand like Fossil or like I don't even know about it, like MVMT movement like that
yeah,
shit.
I've seen
Like
that.
those are like fashion watches, right?
That's okay. That's where I was kind of going with it.
So
was
like
the people that
and
use it as
most people, they're just gonna buy a watch because they're like, oh, I want to wear a watch sometimes. I'm gonna buy one that I think looks nice, and like, yo, nothing wrong with that. Like, do that shit. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. But if you start to look at like the history of it, it's pretty fascinating. And then when you understand like the mechanics of it and the design of it, it's very much like left brain, right brain, like a car, right? Like these are the same kind of nerds that are like, they understand every single component of
Right.
a car, and like the design element is also like you want to, you're attracted to certain designs and not others, right? So
I got you.
there's an artistry and like a science behind it.
I got you. Again, the science to me, I think, is more intriguing. And like, again, just frankly speaking, like a watch, I've seen again, YouTube videos of a guy taking apart a watch, and there's like 10,000 different pieces in there. And
Yeah.
I'm like fucking dumb, where I was like, I did not even know that they could put that many pieces in there, and this is how that works and whatever. But let's let's start though, because you were kind of telling a little bit about like back to you said who was the Galileo. So what's I guess the connection with that?
You got to understand, I guess, like how recent like timekeeping became a thing.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna know the year, but we'll put in the description
fact check.
An amazing video, and I'm not gonna pronounce his name right, but I think it's Oisin O'Malley.
Okay.
Right. He's got a 30-minute doc on this, but I'll try to summarize. So Galileo finds himself in a church one day, and he sees this like chandelier, this light thing swinging back and forth, and he realizes that it is the exact amount of time from when it hits the apex over here to the middle and the other side. And so he's measuring that with his pulse, and he's seeing, wow, like that it's acting like a pendulum, right? And so the thing that made it crazy is like no matter how long the pendulum is, it is exactly the same amount of time. Okay. So there's an exact measurement of like, 1.9 meters or whatever it is, right? Like there's a measurement in there where it's like that's exactly 1 second. If you have anything in the world, like the weight does not matter. If it's that long, it will be exactly 1 second side to side. So this is how like grandfather clocks started.
Okay, yeah.
Now before that shit, dude, people are using like sundials, right? Yeah. They're using like candle clocks where they got marks on a candle and the candle burns down, and they're not reliable, right? Because you got like a steam train going from one city to another. People don't know what fucking time it is because the sundial over here is not the same time as the sundial over there.
And
right?
I would also say that with those types of measurements, those are also doing it on a grander scale, like where you're showing like, hey, you can see hours or, many minutes pass with a watch, obviously. In this pendulum, you're seeing seconds at a time, more specific.
Probably not a train. I know you're about to call me out on a train,
I'm pretty sure.
Whatever, dude, the horse-drawn carriage.
Pretty sure that they mastered
shit they had to time.
They mastered the clock before they got the steam engine working.
Yeah, okay, so, but the point is,
right.
Nobody could time shit that was happening from city to city to city.
Right. There's no universal.
So then you go to the grandfather clocks, right? And any clock with a pendulum. Well, that didn't really work on a ship. So that was where everybody was like sailing around. And when the ship is moving, it fucks up the time, right? So then you got some companies that eventually create the pocket watch, which they found out that there's a spring, right? And if you can coil up this spring, it will uncoil by having like this consistent amount of energy. And that consistent amount of energy could power a balance wheel. Okay. And that balance wheel acts like the pendulum, right? It goes back and forth, and that's what measures the time. So as long as you got that consistent power coming from the spring, the balance wheel will keep the time perfectly. And it's most commonly like 4 beats or like 4 movements per second.
Okay.
So that's like modern watches, pocket watches at the time, like that.
And just generally, like, when did pocket watches kind of start? I feel like 1800s, maybe?
Yeah, like late 1800s.
Okay.
And so then you get into, like, the early 1900s is when wristwatches become more prominent. And that's, brands like Rolex that everybody knows.
I was
like
just about to say that. When did Rolex start? I mean, I
want to say 1906. You got to fact check that, though. I'm probably making that up.
1905.
Oh,
holy
baby.
Shit!
Oh, baby.
I give it to him. I give it to him. He was closer than a year.
Yeah, within 1.5. Nice. So now we're into the more modern at least, of 1900s, where I feel like at least is like that's where you start to see like. I think that fashion aspect starts to kind of come in play because before it was like, hey.
Well, I would say with the pocket watches, there was also a fashion aspect.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, status,
for
status
sure.
symbol.
It was status, but I mean, like if you look at some of the pocket, I actually have one that kind of got inherited through the family. That the engraving on it is very intricate.
Speaking of that,
it doesn't work, but it's engraving is really intricate.
It's not a pocket watch, but this is Grandpa's watch. It's a Pulsar. I didn't do any. We'll take a picture of it and throw it on there, but I didn't do any research, so I have no idea what it's from. 79, so that's kind of cool. But I kind of was getting as my mic is fucking up a little bit there.
Oh man, I remember when he wore this.
But just kind of getting into that part though is like also the passing down of watches and stuff like that. I mean, obviously it would be awesome if our grandfather was like, "Hey, here's a Rolex from 1910 or whatever." But
go ahead.
Again, it's just the like that's how I feel like I kind of got into watches in general, was that like seeing people like, hey, this is a nicer watch, and then again there's a fashion aspect of it or whatever that okay, you wear it for a suit with a wedding and shit like that.
Yeah,
but I digress. So I'll kick it back over to you though. So kind of finish up though with the, as we kind of get into the 20th century, I guess is our watches developing in the 20th and then 21st, are watches developing the mechanics, or is it almost more sought after to have that older kind of mechanism?
Yeah, so you've got in the early 1900s, everything's mechanical still.
Okay,
right?
mechanical.
And the making of a watch in the early 1900s is still an art form. Right? Not everybody can do it. There's not necessarily machines that can mass produce all this stuff, but we're getting there, right? And then the innovations are okay, you've got water resistance that's needed because divers need to time their dives, right? And so then you've got companies that are developing watches that are water resistant. And then you've got companies that are developing new complications, they call them, where you can like a chronograph, right? And you can time different things, that's kind of for racing. So all these different kind of developments and innovations happen, and then I'm not going to remember the exact
we
time
don't
frame,
fact
but
checks,
whenever quartz comes out, right? Call it maybe the 80s or 70s, I don't know, 60s, 70s probably. The watch world, it's crazy, right? Quartz is going to kill all the mechanical watches. Now you can buy a fucking Casio for $4, and why would anybody ever spend more than that? And that was true for a while. Everybody just started buying quartz watches and nothing else. And then I think getting into the last 30 years, there's a revival, right? Where people are going back and they're starting to appreciate okay, somebody really actually knows how to put this shit together of thousands of pieces with their hands. And there's companies that only they can manufacture that thing. Right. And so there's an appreciation for the history of it and the craftsmanship of dude, there's only a few people who can actually do that shit,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that there's definitely been, you said revival. I would definitely just say the, majority, even my friend Sanoop, shout out, he was just he got a couple watches again. It's kind of same inheritance thing, but he's really into that. Just even again, the history of it, oh shit, I want to learn about all this stuff that goes into it. Cause again, it's 100, obviously you're talking about dating back, thousands of years there, but in terms of again, the more modern stuff, even going back a couple hundred years, there's a lot of fucking history there about how it's made, where it's made, all this shit. So again, I definitely am intrigued about watches. I mean, let's talk a little bit. I guess I didn't want to cut you off here. Was that kind of the
that's kind of the general history of how did we get here today? Why do people give a shit about watches?
Right. That was that's I think you put it excellently there. So let's talk about kind of the pieces that you brought. We are going to put up some pictures and stuff like that, graphic.
I really hope that there's a title there that just says graphic.
So we're going to put more closer because obviously you want to appreciate the detail of it, but just kind of go over, I guess, a little bit of a what you got. I guess I see let's even just start with the one on your wrist. Is that what is it? And
okay, so this is a Rolex Submariner.
Oh shit, okay.
So this one, man, the whole thing with Rolex is it's the name that everybody knows, right? And if you're not an enthusiast, you're just a regular dude, and you happen to have a lot of money, you're gonna go buy a Rolex because you want that status symbol, right? And that's what everybody thinks about that brand. But when you go back through the history, we won't go through all of it with Rolex, they were the innovators many times of all these kind of pinnacles of watchmaking throughout history. And you can start to appreciate dude, that's why everybody knows this brand. They completely turned the watch world upside down. And I'm not going to know the exact percentage, but the percentage of market share that they have in 2024 over all of watches is they're untouchable, dude. It's not even close. The second best is not even in the same ballpark, right?
Now let me ask you a question because I heard this in somehow my algorithm now has this guy from the Diamond District. It's all him bartering and selling.
I've seen those too.
It's John Buckley's son.
Okay.
It's John Buckley's son's friend.
Okay.
Is who it is. Dude, I know exactly who you're talking about.
So,
and I went to New York. I went to the Diamond District and saw some of those guys. And I was a little starstruck. I was damn.
My question is though, is again, in that passing, again, it didn't sound right to me, but one guy said, he was well, Rolex isn't producing as they used to. It's not they're producing thousands or millions upon millions of watches each year. I don't think they ever did that. But it's also...
I mean, they definitely did.
Okay, so maybe again, is that a thing though? Because of the prestige, they're not really wanting to make hey, here's the
Yeah.
millionth Rolex here.
I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the thing you got to remember is that the market share changed in that time. Because we've gone from a world where a watch was a necessary, required element to keep time,
functionality,
very much essential for functionality, to it's shifted to more. I don't want to say more of a fashion part, but that's kind of its place that it's holding, because most people end up using their phone. And the
I think
device
he
for a lot of
just
those
to
elements.
interject, sorry, real quick, but I feel like he kind of hit it on the head though. Is like there are two camps of watch. There's watch enthusiasts, and then there's the real diehard guys who are going to be like, I know everything about this. This is why this watch is awesome, or blah blah.
Well, those are the enthusiasts.
Oh, those
right?
are the enthusiasts. Sorry.
Yeah. So there's like the regular person who just kind of has heard of Rolex because they watch golf or some shit or F1.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then there's like the people who, like me, like fall asleep watching watch YouTubers, right? Like,
nice. Okay, so the watch enthusiast, but then there is that other camp of just like everyday Joe Schmo and whatever. But it was a odd thing that I feel like I caught him saying, like, oh well, Rolex isn't really producing anymore. I'm like, that doesn't. To me, it doesn't track, because any company, whether it's something like this, which is a very like high price commodity, and it's like I'm trying to think of like the way to say it, but like it values more the older it gets. It's going to be
Rolex has to be really careful, dude, because they have the most influence of any watch company on the whole industry, right? So when they do something, a lot of other brands are going to follow suit. And if they do something that people don't like, I mean, they almost don't, right? Like everybody kind of just trusts that Rolex is the North Star of the watch business, right? So there is a bit of like artificial demand that they can create by limiting the supply.
Yeah.
It's very mysterious. Like people don't know, unless you work for Rolex, like people don't know how this shit works.
Oh, fuck.
So
that.
there's a dealer that you have to go to. If you want a new Rolex.
I heard this. This is interesting.
Like, okay, so this watch we'll use as an example, right? Like at retail, it's like 11 grand, right? Give or take. Aftermarket, you could buy a used one right now from any other store for like 16, right? A used one is $4,000 more than a new one, because you cannot just walk into a Rolex dealer and be like, I'd like one Submariner, please. They'll be like, oh, great. Like we want to build a relationship with you. Let's look at some other stuff. Let's look at Tudor. Let's look at Omega.
Okay.
So then they're like, we'll put you on the list for the Rolex. Don't worry. But in the meantime, let's look at some other watches. And they expect you to buy other products, right, to develop the relationship.
Okay.
And then once they feel you've done that, they will allocate one of the watches that Rolex sends them to you.
Shit.
And there's
there are this might be an ignorant question. There are no Rolex stores. You don't go into a Rolex.
There are, but mostly
okay.
it's a store that sells other watches, but it's an authorized dealer of Rolex.
Dealer. Okay.
Yeah. Those are the only places that you can buy a new Rolex.
Gotcha,
and as soon as you walk in, everything says for display only. They don't have anything in stock, right? So this is the magic of Rolex, is like they know exactly how much money they're going to make every single year, because every watch that they distribute is already, there's a waiting list of people to buy it.
Yeah.
Every new Rolex, right? So they know that it's not about like, oh, why don't we just make more? They don't want to make it more because they don't want them to just be sitting on a shelf available for purchase. They want it to be something that you can't get.
Bespoke.
Correct.
Bespoke. Welcome to the section of the podcast where we rob the guest star.
All right, so you got the Rolex Submariner, which I've heard is the Submariner though, because that's the submarine watch, right? It's not submarine watch, but it's made for
sub
aquatic.
Is below, Mariner is water.
I guess, was it made for divers? Is that the history? Okay.
It was, and so this was like one of the first, for any other watch enthusiasts, don't come for me, but like it was one of the first dive watches ever. It was one of the first water resistant watches ever. It was also like worn by James Bond, so it got this kind of cult following from just being on the wrist of celebrities early, in the 50s when it came out.
Okay.
So here's an interesting question for you. Knowing that and knowing what it's designed for, and also knowing that it's a pretty prized possession, do you have any qualms with trying to take it below water?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I would 100%
just
swim with
in.
it. Oh,
yeah,
dude. Like there's zero doubt in my mind that there would be any damage to this watch from jumping in the water. Okay. Zero.
Well, also I feel like if like if you went to like your authorized dealer or whatever and been like, hey, I jumped in with a Submariner and now it's water damaged.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
what the? I'm sure they would be like, well, that shouldn't happen.
I just look at it from the standpoint of like everything says my phone can go in the water up to whatever depth. That being said, I'm not purposely going out of my way to jump in the water with it.
But again, something made for the water. Again, you have no qualms with it. Now, let's say, are you going to go and
that's kind of what I was getting
swim a 10-mile with the watch on? Maybe
so
not.
I don't swim. I would never swim 10 miles. Period. But like if I'm like at a lake or something or like and I'm jumping in the water, like I'm not thinking twice about like, oh, let me take my watch off. This is probably the one watch in my collection that I would not care jumping in the water with.
Nice.
Like I'm 100% faith that it would be good to go.
That's cool. Okay, so you got the Submariner, and now just another question: is that like more of like is that like an everyday watch? Is that more?
Right now it is, dude. I can't put anything else on since I bought it. Like I'm. It's one of those watches that it took me a long time to get, right? Like I wanted it for years and years and years, and it was I did the wait list thing. I mean, also, dude, I don't just have like that kind of cash laying around, right? Like this was a very planful thing that I waited and worked towards, right? Like you usually don't start with that unless you're just a rich guy.
Right, yeah. So
do you have that relationship built up now with the dealer?
Yeah, I do. So like that's the thing is like now if I want another Rolex, another type of Rolex, like it'll be a lot easier for me to get than the first one.
It's a good way to start it.
Sorry, I keep questions popping into my head here. So when you do kind of allocate that money and you like, again, you're like, this is a large investment, because I think that definitely they are investments. Do you also feel kind of like a obligation to be like, I need to be like, I know like you're a watch guy, like you always have, like to have the watch on or whatever, but like, do you also feel like I'm gonna need to wear this every day to kind of like validate the purchase? Like, hey, I spent this money on it, I need to kind of wear it enough to be like, hey, I've gotten my money's worth.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I don't feel like that about this one. Like, I'm wearing this one every day because I just have waited so long, and like now I have it, and now I just, dude, it's such.
You want to flaunt it. You want to be like, hey, man.
Well, it's not, dude. For me,
it's about flaunting.
For me, like, it's a pleasure to look at. Like, and I won't even get into all the reasons why, but like, this is the most copied watch of all time, and I've got other watches that are kind of like it, right? And now when I look down and see it, I'm like, fuck, dude, that's exactly what a dive watch is supposed to look like. Yeah. Not the other ones I have that look kind of like that, but they're a little different. I look at it and I'm just like, yeah, dude, it's the one. It's the most iconic watch of all time.
Right, which I think, again, I maybe flaunting it. I mean, that probably was the wrong term. But, like, again, it's to you. It's like you're, like, looking at your wrist going, like, this is fucking sick. Like, I want to. It's just like getting anything else. Like, I got a sick hat. Like, I want to wear it all the time because I think it looks awesome.
I'd say this, and knowing Steve pretty well, I don't think that he's in the business of flaunting anything. I think it's more of that he bought a watch to wear it.
But to your question, I think where you were going is like, I do have other watches that I don't really wear that much anymore. And it crosses my mind, like, should I sell that? Should I keep it? Should I, like, what do I do with this watch that I don't really care about anymore?
Right.
And the thing is, man, like, every watch for me, there's like a story behind it, and I'm kind of like, what was I doing at this time in my life, and like, why did I buy it? Was it to wear to a specific thing? Was it to celebrate something? And to be honest, dude, like, part of that, I'm trying to like give a little bit to Jake in our band, right? Like, I just gave Jake a watch that I don't really wear anymore, but Jake's kind of just getting into watches. So like, cool. I gave him one of my old ones, and I was like, hey, this is the story behind it. This is what makes it cool. Like, pop this on, and I'm trying to get him to appreciate, like, exactly what I'm talking about with you guys, the history of it, like why. So, for me, I'd much rather just like give a watch away to somebody that I know who will appreciate it than try to sell it or like,
That is a nice thing to just be like, hey, I'm not, because I feel like a lot of people right now, like, or they buy watches, like, again, this Diamond District people, like, they're buying watches to sell it, to make a profit. There's no, like, even with a great story behind it or whatever, it's like, I like that kind of approach of it more of like, there's a story behind it. This is special to me or whatever. And then again, if you sell it, it's also not for like, maybe it's just like, hey, I have 10 watches now. I can't wear every single one, so I'm just getting rid of some of the collection.
Yep.
As far as seeing the story behind it and that being like that emotional connection to the watch, I guess is a good way to put it. Is that only relegated to the watches, or do you feel that way towards other items that you own in life?
I do a little bit with guitars, a little bit, and
it makes sense.
It's not like I buy it. The difference is I'm not like, oh, something great happened, I'm gonna go celebrate by buying a guitar, right? Like I kind of buy a guitar when I need to solve a specific musical problem. Like I'm looking for a very specific tone, or I like, whatever the thing is that is missing from my guitar setup. That's why I buy one.
And just a quick note, you are a guitarist, so.
Correct, yeah.
No, he plays piano.
Just collect guitars. No, but I will find like, okay, I've got guitars that I don't really play anymore. Like, what do I do with this? And I don't want to get rid of it because there is some sentimental value there of like just remembering how shitty of a guitar player I was when I bought it, or like, who my friends were at the time. Like that might, you know what I mean? So there's some sentimental stuff there.
Part of me just thinking like, you're looking at the guitars and you're like, fuck you, Dave. I'm selling this guitar.
Yeah.
He's been dead for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, I do actually have a watch that belonged to a friend of mine who passed away, and like obviously that's one that you're never gonna get rid of it.
Right. Yeah.
And I do play it. I mean, I've played it in our band before, like but yeah, I've got
Sorry, you
ones.
said watch, but you meant guitar, right?
Did I say watch?
Yeah, sorry.
You did say watch, but
yeah, guitar.
So you play that's actually fucking awesome. I mean, to keep that memory alive is sick. So the other watch that you were going to get to with the case here.
Oh yeah, okay. So I figured like we should just talk about like a lot of people when they get into watches, they want to collect enough where they feel like, okay, I've got like a dress watch, I've got a dive watch, I've got a chronograph, I've got like these different types. Typically like round out a collection with a couple different types.
Oh,
so
okay, cool. I
brought just like a couple types that I think are dope. So this first one is a micro brand, so it's Zelos.
Okay.
And it's a brand from Singapore, and they do very limited runs, and they're kind of hard to get. So this watch came out a couple years ago, but I couldn't get it. It sold out immediately, and I had to wait several years till I saw one pop up used, and I bought it like immediately.
Okay.
And the thing that's cool about it, it's very thin. It's a dress watch.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah.
The dial is a piece of fucking meteorite, like formed over billions of years.
That's
right?
dope.
So this shit is like literally out of this world, like literally from a fucking space rock, and yeah. So that's the first one that I think is like one of my favorites in my collection. I'll probably never sell. So to give you an example too, like Rolex makes a meteorite dial watch. It's like $30,000, right? Like but these micro brands now they're making stuff like that, like a meteorite dial, more accessible, right? So that one I think was like $1,000, which is not cheap by any means, but for somebody listening or watching, they're gonna be like $1,000 on a watch, $11,000 on a watch. Like this dude is a psychopath. But like, dude, the world of watches, like watches sell for literal millions of dollars.
I was gonna
right?
say, yeah.
Like, so when you're talking about watches, like Rolex is like a, kind of mid-level when it comes to price, right? Like it's not a super expensive watch by any means.
Just notoriety with the name is really
exactly.
And I think too, you have to look at it as an investment as well. I mean, it's not something that seems to depreciate for the most part, unless there's some sort of damage type of thing to that, and the provenance is really a big element. So it's not like you're throwing money away. I'd also like to point out you used an Uber to get here because you don't have a car.
He's lying.
That is
I
true.
have a car.
But
nice car.
I would also just kind of say to fucking Mike. There we go.
Steve takes the bus a lot.
But I would say though, again, in terms of like, this is definitely like, this is the education into watches just in general. I mean, this is, I think the biggest takeaway is always going to be, this is your collection. And collections, I feel like, are very personal to people. Like you were saying, like a guy who has millions upon millions of dollars, he's going to obviously buy a different caliber of watch. Anybody who has less than that, they're going to kind of go with what's in their price range, but also sentimental value. Hey, I like the look of this. It may not be the most expensive, or again, as you were saying, hey, I'm saving up to buy this. I don't just have $11,000 lying around and shit like that. So I think just kind of putting a grain of salt on that. That hey,
and
to each their own.
I say all of it in jest. I mean, because people collect the things that interest them, and they make the decisions, they make the priority in what to get there, and you don't do stuff if you can't do it, right? You said you built up over years to getting to the point of building the collection.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Like my collection 5 years ago, I still had probably 8 or 10 watches, but like it looks a lot different now. Like I've sold those, I've moved on to other things that I want. I mean, I've also been very fortunate in my career, right? Like there's a lot of aspects to it, but 5 years ago, like you've got a way different looking collection, but people in the watch community are super respectful of like where anybody's at in that journey. So like there's a collection that might have a diver, a dress watch, a chronograph, a G-Shock, like all these different types of watches, and the total value might be like $600, and nobody in the watch community is like, oh, fuck that guy with all his cheap watches, right? Like people will really appreciate like, holy shit, you built that collection with $600. That's
Right,
unbelievable. Like it looks amazing, you know? So it's a very supportive community of like
that,
people that want to help each other learn and like appreciate it.
Hell yeah. All right, so watch, what do you got next?
Yeah, so this one, this is another micro brand, and it's been really, this style of watch has been really popular in the last like year or two, and they call it an integrated bracelet. So this is a Direzno. It's made by a guy in Switzerland, and you'll notice that the bracelet of this watch is kind of integrated into the case. So it's not meant to be taken off. This is super popular in the 70s, and it was made popular by this guy named Gerald Genta, I believe is how you say his name.
Okay.
So he worked for all these like famous watch companies, and he made that style of like integrated bracelet. So you'll see a lot of like athletes, they've got Audemars Piguet on their wrists, or APs most people call it, which is like a fucking $80,000 watch, and they look kind of like that. It's a Gerald Genta style integrated bracelet watch. So it's become a staple of a lot of collectors' collections because everybody kind of wants a way to get to this integrated 70s style
I gotcha.
watch.
And I would just a quick question here. So like I've seen on those two, the back is it's a glass window. It's not a thing. And I would say just again the watches that I had are all obviously full backing or a covered backing. Is that more of a sign of just again how I would say more prominent watch companies do it is so that you can kind of see like the innards, the insides of it?
Yeah. I always thought that was super cool, like being able to look at the movement in there.
Hell
but
yeah.
It's not like, it's kind of a newer thing,
Oh,
right? So
okay.
like the Rolex doesn't have that. Like, okay, the case back of this Rolex, if I can get this off while holding the microphone, is it's literally nothing at all. Like it's super lame.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nothing. Yeah. So Rolex just recently came out with their first see-through case back.
Okay.
And it was like literally, I think it was this year. I think it was either 2023 or 2024. They released a Daytona that has a sapphire case back, so you could see through it. And it's like, they're late to the game on that, but everybody's freaking out. Like that watch is absolutely impossible to get because it's the only Rolex that has a see-through case back.
Okay. Sorry. This is kind of what I always anticipated was going to happen when you bring in shiny things. I'm going to ask a million questions here.
Yeah, dude.
Are each of these wound?
No.
Okay.
No.
The other
none of
two
them are
were-
wound except the Rolex.
Except the
Got it,
Rolex.
okay.
Yeah, but they were like in my car on the way over here, so some of them the second hand might be moving just because they're all powered by like motion.
Oh, okay,
right?
okay. That's kind of what I was getting at. Like these are not the battery powered.
No, these are all automatic.
Got it.
Okay.
With the exception of this one. This one's a hand wound one, so there's no rotor in the back.
Okay.
But you'll find the rest of them have a rotor. This one does not have a see-through case back. But this is actually the watch that I bought from the Rolex dealer to build the relationship.
Gotcha.
Right. Now the thing is, I wanted this anyway. Like
Right.
it's not
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
but the difference is like I'll go buy it from you instead of where I would normally go buy a watch because I want you to sell me a Rolex, right? So this one is a GMT. And this one actually is it's a pilot watch. So there's a lot of stuff that you need to time while you're flying.
Okay.
And this is it's got 4 hands, right? It's got your hour hand, your minute hand, your second hand, and then the GMT hand. And the GMT hand, it goes around a 24-hour scale. So at noon, all your hands are pointing towards 12, except the GMT hand's pointing towards 6. So because it follows a 24-hour scale like the sun, you can use this as a compass by pointing the hour hand at the sun, and then the GMT hand will point north.
Oh, that's
Really?
fucking cool.
Yeah. So this is part of the way that, pilots in the old days before there was like fancy navigational tools, they would use a watch like this to navigate where they are in the sky and what direction they need to be going. So this one is that's a Longines Spirit Zulu time.
Okay. Now, Jesus Christ. So, I've noticed on the Rolex and then not the first micro, the second one, that one, the links on it are like the metal. Like I guess the question would be like, when you have a different band of it, whether it's leather or something else other than the links, like is this, I guess, like how this watch was designed with this type of band, or did it normally?
It came with this.
Came with the links. Okay. Is that how most watches are? They come with a metal link chain?
I would say, like a lot of them do, depending on what kind it is. So like that would be like what's considered a sports watch, and pretty much all sports watches will come with a metal bracelet. And then, I like to put leather bands on some of them because I just think sometimes that looks better.
I think it looks much better. And you said one of them was like I fucking forgot, like a event watch or something.
A dress watch.
Dress watch. Yeah. That's what you said. Again, the leather looks much better with that. I would agree with that.
Yeah, like you're not going to put a leather band on a dive watch probably because like the point of a dive watch is to get wet, and it's a tool, right? It's like
just again the look of it is like you don't want to. It's not going to look right, and but. So so you have that, and I do actually love that. So that's 3 watches you can carry in that case right there.
There's 4.
But I was
wearing 4 one. So the 4th, I did bring a 4th one, and this is a pilot watch. But this was the first watch I ever bought that was like, I think it might have been like $1,100. Like this is the first time I spent like money on a watch, right? So this is also that brand Zelos I was telling you about from Singapore. Now they're all Swiss movements. All the innards, as you called it, are made in Switzerland, right? But the rest of the watch is like assembled in Singapore. Okay. And the micro brands are cool, dude, because like you literally can just interact with the owner, right? Like if you have an issue with your Rolex, you're never going to be able to just like, hey, Paul, shoot a text over to whoever the CEO of Rolex is. But with this brand, like I literally I have talked to the guy who owns this brand, right? Nice. So it's pretty cool with those micro brands to do that. And that's a pilot watch. What was cool about that one, in my opinion, is one, it's hand wound like the other Zelos I have. So there's no rotor in the back, and there's something kind of nice about just feeling that like clicky fucking hand wind thing. And then the dial of that watch is fully loomed, which means they made it with luminescent material. So if you're out in the sun for a little bit and then come inside, that literally the entire dial of that watch will glow.
Oh, hell yeah.
So, and that's a pilot watch too. You'll see on the 12 o'clock is a triangle.
Right.
I don't know the whole story around that, but that definitely just denotes that it's a pilot watch.
Okay.
They're usually big and bold and easy to see, the different indices and stuff like that. So,
wow.
Anyway, this is a small piece of my collection, but I just wanted to show you guys, like, I've built a collection with a dress watch, a dive watch, a couple pilot watches, a GMT, and I've got a G-Shock at home, a couple others.
Okay, I've heard of G-Shock, yeah.
Yeah. Casio is the most famous watch/piano company in the world.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a little
/calculator or printer or
a little diversification over there, but
they definitely have their place in there. They made the first digital watch, right?
I don't know if they were the first, but they're definitely the most prominent digital watch. Like everybody, John Mayer is a huge watch collector, and he wears a G-Shock every now and again. So the rest of the watch community is like, oh, everybody needs a G-Shock. Even John Mayer has one,
I would say just for again we're gonna do some pictures. I'm gonna actually have you send me at some point just like the quick background of those of like, hey, this is this watch from this year or whatever. There we go. I love mics.
Is it the cable or is it the mic?
I have no idea, man, but we're almost done here anyway. So, but we'll have like kind of the descriptions in there with the pictures. I do apologize for anybody who's listening. The mic kind of cut out a little bit there. But I don't give a fuck. So, what do you got, Aaron?
I'm just making fun of the mic popping out.
It's all good, man. You know what? It's we got new mics, which is the worst part. I'm sitting right there. But
brought to you by the closing of Sam Ash.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, like I said, Steve, I definitely appreciate, again, it's kind of like an education into watches to kind of get it going. I think realistically, the goal of the podcast is just to kind of get anybody on who has an interest in something that, again, up until this point, I had no idea about watches aside from the YouTube pages and shit like that. But like I said, I'd love to have you back on. Love to have some more Bulls talk again, more when it's during the season or maybe even prior to it. Get some predictions there. Aaron, always a pleasure to have you back on. I know you've been absent for a little bit. We
And
do
I'll see
have
you again
to
in another 6 months.
Yeah, there you go. But we do have to do that gaming night. We're gonna talk about
we'll make it work.
trying to film some stuff, get some board games on. I know we had played. What was the name of the one that we played before?
We played Nemesis.
That was a great time though. I almost kind of wish that we put a camera up just to kind of see the movements of that. And
yeah, I mean that we could definitely do it as a purpose thing. I think for that night it was not the purpose.
No, that was
a
just
good time.
Just to have fun there. But
yeah.
I mean, again, any guys' final thoughts? What do you got coming out of here? We're about to wrap this up.
Great collection, Steve. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. I mean, if one person sees that and they're just like, "Oh shit, that's really interesting," like maybe I should spend $180 on a Seiko. Like, do that shit, dude. It's fun. It's like anything else.
I was gonna say because I was talking to my friend Sanoop about this, and like I said, he's had some watches fall into his lap here that he was like really excited about. Like, oh, I just want to learn the history of it and the where all that stuff comes from. He was like, I can't wait until this episode drops. So at least one person I know will have a lot of value on it, but I'm sure there's plenty more. So again, thanks for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. Had a great time. This has been the Journeyman Lounge podcast with Woj. We have older Woj. We have Steve. And again, we'll be dropping a lot of shit, so just keep I haven't edited the last couple episodes, so I'm going to do those soon here. Instagram page coming out, video clips, all this shit coming out.
I hope you put a countdown for the Instagram.
Dude, people are just
going to be... At the very least, it should be number of episodes that the Instagram page promised.
Dude, people are going to just like look at their YouTube one day, whoever like are subscribers, and be like, there's 5 new videos, Instagram page, 7 new short clips. Like, I'm just getting all that shit out.
What happened? Oh, it turns out Jason lost his job.
You know what?
He's got a lot of free time now.
Let's say I've been nursing the back injury a little bit. That's been slowing me down here. But I'm back at it golfing. I will have an update after my golf weekend next week, Thursday. So I'll be giving you guys all the good stories about how drunk I got and probably shot a ball into somebody's house. But again, I already kind of signed us out. But the Journeyman Lounge podcast. We'll fucking talk to y'all next week.